We've got a really sophisticated media kit that we send out to them all to talk about the brand. It tells a lot of the stories behind the brand. But ultimately, it's our product that does the winning for us, because 99% of the time when we have had media mentions, it's come from I've sent them product. And once they've tried it, they go, oh, yeah, your media kit's pretty. But once they've tried the product, that's when we really convert them.
Hi, I'm Jane Hilsden, marketing consultant and founder of Dragonfly Marketing and author of How to Do Marketing, a comprehensive guide for small businesses. Welcome to this episode of the How to Do Marketing show. Today, I'm talking to a very good friend of mine, Sarah Shepherd. Sarah and I met in our early 20s when we were both keen to explore what being an entrepreneur was all about. We actually started to make handbags and sell them down at the Bondi markets. So every Sunday morning, we would sit along the fence down at the primary school where the markets are held from about 4 a.m. in the morning, waiting very patiently to secure a table at the hugely popular markets. Honestly, we never really sold many, but it was to be our first attempt of starting a business. Now, fast forward 20 years, and Sarah and her business partner, Abby, have founded a sleepwear brand called Hibernate. I've watched them research and meticulously plan this business from scratch. And one thing that they have done incredibly well is to ensure that their product is on point, that their distribution channels or place allows for enough profit, and their pricing is at a level that works for their business as well as the customer. The promotion has also been exceptionally executed. Simple and truly effective. Anyway, I will let Sarah tell you how her journey began. I usually introduce my guests in my intro, but I would love for you to tell the story of the business journey that you have had with Hibernate yourself, Sarah. Can you please share this with us?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. Hibernate was really one of those textbook light bulb moments, business idea light bulb moments. I was shopping for pajamas myself, couldn't find what I wanted, and just thought there's got to be another one. I can't be alone here. There's got to be other women who are looking for what I'm looking for. And at the time I was working in a corporate environmental law firm in marketing. That's my background. I've got a marketing degree. I've almost worked for 20 years in marketing. And so I kind of thought, well, that's actually really good footing, I guess, for starting my own business, because marketing is really such a big part of it. So yeah, that's really kind of how it all began. The idea sort of ruminated for a few years, and then I had started my family, and then fortuitously was introduced by a mutual friend to someone who was thinking of doing a very similar thing. So that's my business partner, Abby. And so we started the brand about 18 months ago, but we're working on it together for probably about 2 years.
Wow. Yep. And so you worked on the concept together for 2 years. So then have you been working on this business for the last 3.5 years? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Well, look, I mean, in some ways, look, I feel lucky that we had that much time to put into it, because a lot of the time, if you want to be first to market with an idea, you don't have the luxury of that. We had very young children, so we kind of wanted to focus on that. And when I say young, I mean brand new babies. So we were lucky to have the time, and especially because it was a new industry for both of us. So there was so much to learn, and both Abby and I are very particular. We're very thorough. And also, we didn't want to become a small business statistic, and we really wanted to make this work. It was not a hobby. It was a real business idea, and we had to put the time into it. And I think that has paid off in many respects, because there really is so much to know. On the flip side, you can also get paralysis from thinking about things for too long. So there is an argument for jumping into things, but yeah, we were lucky that we feel lucky we had the time.
Yeah. So tell us about Hibernate. What is it? What do you sell? What's it all about?
So it's a line of sleepwear that's exclusively for women at this point. We sell our collection is very minimalist, modern, contemporary, using beautiful Pima cotton, which is an incredible fabric that we source from Peru. We really saw the gap in the market for what women were wearing to bed. They were spending all this money on these amazing clothes during the day and beautifully made, incredible fabrications, and they were spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But yet when it came to they wore to bed, they just were quite happy to, wear something that wasn't well made, not great quality fabrics, and they weren't spending money on it. So we really wanted to create something for these women that made them feel a little bit special. And we also recognize from a business perspective that there's a huge market for this, because every woman sleeps every single day of her life.
So true.
Not everyone does yoga. Not everyone gets pregnant. Not everyone has a dog, for all these other products, so there's a really, and not only, do you sleep every day, like you do it for the rest of your life. So
yes,
some of our customers, and, we're obviously only a new business, but we see some of our customers in their 20s and some of them, up to their 60s. And we hope and we think that they'll sort of stick with us, because our designs are quite timeless.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. And I think, obviously you and I have known each other for a great many years. And I remember you, when you first started thinking about this idea and talking about it in those initial planning stages. And I remember thinking, my goodness, yeah, you absolutely have identified that gap in the market, because, you're saying how, women tended to spend a lot of money on, the clothes that they wear through the day, and even, through their exercise classes. And we're all starting to spend all of this money on luxurious clothing for every occasion, except for our sleep. But we couldn't get it, Sarah. Like, it just didn't exist.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And it's also, the irony to me is that you spend almost as much time sleeping as you do, going to work and going out and doing things. So it just made sense that you would want to spend money on something that you spend a lot of time doing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And I think, and it's kind of difficult for some women to wrap their heads around that. But equally, if you think back 20 years ago, no one would have been spending the money they're spending now on activewear. We just wore daggy shirts and shorts and we didn't care about it, but it's become a thing. And I'm not suggesting that sleepwear is going to necessarily overtake activewear as a category, but I do think it has been a category that has been long overlooked. And also the statistics show it is and not just because of recent world events. The statistics show over the last few years that it is a really a big growth area.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, this is exactly why I wanted to speak with you, because I think you've identified that perfect gap in the market, and you've come up with a product that will meet that demand. So as a trained marketer, you will be familiar with the 4 Ps of marketing. Like, this is marketing 101. The 4 Ps of marketing. In fact, I think not even only trained marketers know about the 4 Ps. I think most people have heard about the 4 Ps somewhere along the line. And of course, if you haven't, what I'm referring to is product, place, price, and promotion. For a great many decades, these 4 things have sat soundly within any thorough marketing strategy. What I see a lot of small businesses do, though, is neglect to focus on their product, their place. And when I say place, I mean where they're going to sell the product, how much they're going to charge, the price, and generally they'll jump straight into the promotion. So we've just heard from you that you actually spent 2 years meticulously planning every element of your business. But a good part of that 2 years was meticulously planning that product. So you'd identified that gap in the market, and you knew there was a space for your product to sit. but you did spend quite a lot of time thinking through that product and how you were going to actually bring that to your consumers. But you've also thought about the pricing and the promotion as well. But what I'd like to do is go through each of those 4 Ps with you, just because I think out of most small businesses I know, I think you've put in the most consideration at the beginning of your business into the planning of these. So let's kick off with product. Okay. So you've identified that there was the market there, but why sleepwear, other than the fact that it was something that you could see that there was a gap? You know, why did that kind of sing to you?
Well, I mean, obviously it started just with me, but as I started to socialize that idea and talk to other women about it, I got a very instant resounding, oh my God, yes, I find it really hard. And people would go on and on about what they wanted and what they couldn't find and what they wore to bed. And I really thought, wow, I really am not alone here. And one of the first things I did was I ran some market research focus groups, and it was literally just with people I picked. Some of them were close friends, some of them were not. And I ran a few groups because the last thing I wanted to do was to create a brand to sell sleepwear that I was going to wear. You know, I really needed to understand, well, this has got to be a viable business. So what do women want, really? And I sat down, and it was really interesting, well, for me, because a lot of women don't really talk about their nighttime routines and what they wear to bed. And, you know, I was shocked to hear how many people wear sleep masks to bed and how many people actually don't wear anything to bed. Like, that shocked me too. But interestingly, a lot of those women still wear sleepwear because they want to get up and put something on straight away.
Yeah.
Before they get dressed for the day. So I found that really beneficial to get a really good understanding as to what women wanted. I read and read and read and read. I researched a lot, and as did my partner. And we really thought about, well, where is the gap? What can we do differently? Because, you know, there's a lot of sleepwear out there, and our stuff, when you look at it, for those who haven't seen it, it's literally 4 colors, very basic, minimal colors, and there's no patterns, there's no frills, there's no buttons. It's all very, very simple. So you can go, well, I could get that from anywhere, you know, a dime a dozen. But we really focused on the functionality and the quality. So you're going to be sleeping for 8 hours, hopefully, a night. And we wanted it to be something that women felt comfortable and good in, and that actually worked. So, you know, for example, like to give you a really micro example, you know, the elastic that we use in the waistbands for the pants and the shorts, you know, I sourced them samples from Germany, the UK, France, Japan, Australia, everywhere, to find an elastic that would work really well on a woman's body. It wouldn't roll over. It would last. It would be durable, because women wear sleepwear over and over and over again. You know, I mean, I won't name brands, but you can go to a lot of shops and buy yourself a cheap pair of pajama pants, but they won't last because the elastic will go, or the knees will be saggy after you wear them a few times. All these sort of pain points we really tried to fix, I guess. So that takes a long time. It's not easy, and that's probably why a lot of people are not doing it. So yeah, the functionality and the quality of the fabric had to be exceptional, because the thing with sleepwear is that it does get very high usage. So it really does need to last. And not only do we want it to be a great product to wear, and we want it to last, but also from a sustainability perspective, you know, we've got a real social and environmental, I guess, conscience. That's right. And we think about those things. And, you know, it's actually the sustainability of a garment is obviously it's got a lot to do with what it's made of and who makes it and all that sort of stuff. But actually the biggest indicator as to the sustainability of garment is how long you own it for. That's what makes a garment sustainable. So you can go and buy your 5 tops that might not last you a long period of time, but actually what you're better doing for the environment is just buying one that's going to last you as long as those 5 tops might have lasted you.
Yes.
So,
yes.
and I think that consumers really are shifting to that type of buying as well in terms of quality. So yeah, the quality, same with the fabrics, we really, I sort of always had my heart set on Pima cotton because it's a particularly special type of cotton that originates from Peru, and it's very hard to source. And so that's why we source it from Peru, because they're the best at it. And we also get our whole collection made in Peru because as a result of them growing Pima, they've got a huge apparel manufacturing industry over there. And it's incredibly sophisticated, and our sleepwear manufacturer, all they deal with is Pima cotton, and they deal with some of the biggest sleepwear brands in the world. So we were very particular about all those things. And not only that, they've got the highest ethical accreditation they can get. That was really important to us. I went to visit when we launched the collection, or before they started making for us, just to see it with my own 2 eyes. I really needed to know. It didn't sit comfortably with us for us it not to be a collection to be made with someone that wasn't practicing really high standards with their employees.
Yes.
So we're really proud. Wow. We're really proud about that too.
Wow. So talk me through. So when you say that you got, like you sourced the elastic for the waist, because I remember when you told me that, and I thought you are so right, because it's not only the fact that the elastic wastes and kind of becomes looser. I find, particularly when sleeping, if the elastic is too tight around your waist, it can actually be really uncomfortable through the night, and that can actually wake me up. So getting that kind of perfect elasticizing around the waist must have been, really important, and something that I perhaps wouldn't have even thought of, even though it has been my dissatisfaction in the past. But the fact that you thought about that, so you go and you source the elastic. How do you try it? Did you were you making samples and then just putting each piece of elastic in each pant and trying it out over a certain period of time? How did you trial it?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, we did sample a few of them, but really you can get a pretty good sense for a piece of elastic. If you've got a big enough piece of elastic, all you do is you can stretch it in as many tough ways as you can. And it's a matter of looking at what they call the recovery of that elastic and how it recovers really in terms of once you've stretched it and really given it a sort of good tug. Once the elastic comes back into itself, you don't want there to be any wrinkles. You don't want there to be any stretches. It should look exactly how it did, when it was laid flat or just sitting there. So, and I mean giving it a really good go, because we've all felt it. We've all felt the elastic kind of curve within our waistbands, and it's really frustrating. And often a pair of pants could last a lot longer, but it's the elastic that gives way to it. The other thing that we did was we really asked women what they wanted in terms of how do you wear it, because if people have got in their heads, it's sleepwear, you just wear it to bed, you just make that old men's style pajama with the buttons up the middle and the lapel. Well, I mean, we thought, why are people still making those? It's so outdated. Why does anyone want these fussy buttons? And it's often in a cotton poplin where it doesn't stretch as you're rolling over in bed. That lapel is so old-fashioned. I just think people kept doing the same old, and they hadn't really thought about, well, how do women wear it? And women are not just wearing it to bed. I mean, the same goes for men, but women are not just wearing it to bed. They're putting it on often as soon as they get home, or they're wearing it around the house, particularly if you've got young children. You often end up wearing it for more than you'd like to at the start of the day. So we wanted it to be something where women felt they were kind of a little bit put together.
Yes.
We have a range, a part of the collection actually includes inbuilt shelf bras, because that was another pain point for women, is that, if someone came to the door, the courier guy or an unexpected visitor, or they wanted to sort of feel a little bit more put together and they didn't have to rush into the bedroom and put a bra on. Their sleepwear, and kind of didn't want to look like they were still in their pajamas. We get told that a lot by our customers that they don't feel like they're in pajamas. So it's really not just looking at it from a a pure a purist perspective as to, well, what is this sleepwear for? Sleepwear is for sleeping. Well, it's actually more than that.
Yes, yeah. And as you're describing this, of course, you are literally describing me. Like I absolutely, especially in the winter, the first thing I do is come home, get out of my work gear once I've finished doing all the sport rounds, and get into my comfy pants. And of course, I do have a pair of Hibernate pajamas, and I've got the harem style pants. And honestly, they are like, I just can't wait to get into them, because it's like, honestly, almost like you're not wearing anything. They're so comfortable. Chuck on the Ugg boots, and particularly as we go into winter, this is a really common story. But then also sometimes in the morning, I might just keep the pajama pants on, chuck a pair of, walnuts on and a t-shirt, and duck down to get coffee in them, because I'm not quite ready to get out of my my sleepy, lazy clothes and ready for the day, but I can keep the pants on and duck down and get a coffee. And the other thing that I've worn them to is yoga as well, because they kind of stretch with the body and they don't get caught up. And obviously that's that Pima cotton that the elastic's not too tight. Like, they are honestly just so comfortable. So you've clearly, and certainly what I've heard from you just talking then, is that you've put so much effort into researching your consumer and your target consumer here to really design a product that works for them. And while you had, ideals around, well, we want to make sure it's comfy, and in you particular, Sarah, really wanted to have that Pima cotton. And I've never heard of Pima cotton before. I had no idea that Peru had such a sophisticated manufacturing history, or that they were even doing that. I guess when I think of manufacturing, I think of kind of India and China and some of the Asian countries. I had no idea. So I love the fact, everything about the product sounds unique. It sounds incredibly considered, and it sounds like it's so perfectly matched to your target consumer, which I'm putting my hand up as being that woman, that, it really does make for quite a compelling product.
Can I just add to that, Jane, before you move on to the next thing? The other thing that's really, in terms of product, which has been really reassuring, I guess, is that it's resonating with our customers, because they are coming back.
Yeah.
Almost every day we will see a customer that has bought from us, who has bought from us in the last week. And it's often because they've just received their products, or they've had a few days to sleep in their products. And we get told this over and over. Once people wear Hibernate, they find it very difficult to go back to their other fabrics, their other sleepwears in. So
absolutely,
it's really lovely to see it resonating and people being so passionate about the brand. Our brand loyalty is far greater than I ever would have imagined. People really get addicted.
And that's exactly it. And I think there's so many businesses that just that underestimate how important that product is, and having a product that's so perfectly matched to your target audience is. Because at the end of the day, if your product isn't right, or if your product is dime a dozen, or if your product's if there's just not the demand for your product, you can throw $1 million at your marketing, but it's not going to create you a good business, because your product's not right. You need to make sure that that product is right. In your case, you've had the product right from the beginning, because you went and did the research, which is just so important. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next P. P for price. Now, you'd originally planned a pricing strategy that I imagine kind of matched your product design and your product sourcing and manufacturing, as well as, brand. But then you adjusted it a little while after your launch. Can you tell us about your experience with pricing and all that you've learned along the way with this?
Yeah, sure. Look, I've learned a lot, and I'm really glad you have brought this up, because I don't think people talk about this enough, and not enough effort really goes into thinking about it. In saying that, Not enough people talk about it. It's very difficult to find the information that you're looking for. It's really difficult to find benchmarking for your category. And people are often very shy about talking about it. So I don't mind talking about the fact that we started with a different pricing strategy that we have now. Initially, it was quite high. It was supposed to be a premium. It was a premium price point for a premium product. And I think very, very quickly we realized through customer feedback and those customers and those people who wanted to be customers that it was just too high. And we had pinned it at that point, A, to make a good margin, but B, we received some really good advice, which was to include a little bit for wiggle room in case we wanted to wholesale at some point, because we're just direct to consumer, and we still are. So we wanted to include that bit of wiggle room, and it just got to the point where we couldn't grow the business fast enough being at that price point, and without a sort of juggernaut of millions of dollars behind us in marketing, we just didn't feel like we could get the brand to where it needed to be. So we took it down a notch. We didn't compromise on quality at all. Yeah. We changed a few things with the packaging, which actually made us more eco-friendly, but really the product stayed exactly the same. But what we did was we got rid of that wiggle room for wholesaling, and we committed to, we will only be a direct to consumer business. So
right.
.com's the only place you can buy it.
Yeah.
So that helped us bring down the margin. But we also realized that by bringing the price down, it would help our volumes go up, obviously. And that would get us in the end game to a better position than if we had stayed with the original pricing strategy of being a much more premium brand. So so it's now a bit more volume game. And look, the figures are showing that we're heading in the right direction and that it's working. But it's a really tricky thing to work out. We also were not strict about having the same margin across the collection. So some items have got more margin factored into it than others.
Yes.
And that might be because, for example, we might have a really, something that sells really well. So like our pants are really popular and they sell out constantly. And so the margin on the pants might not be as high as the margin on, say, one of our sleep dresses. Now, what tends to happen is, and that's because what tends to happen is when a woman buys a pair of pajamas, or when she buys pajamas, if she wants a top and a bottom, she's got to buy two things.
Yeah.
Whereas if she wants a dress or a nightie, she has to buy one thing.
Yeah.
So we can afford to take a little less margin on the pants.
Yes.
Because we know she's also going to buy something else. And we also know she's probably going to come back and want pants in another colour.
Yes.
So we took that into account as well. So don't be afraid of having different margins across your collection, and don't be afraid to revisit them. I mean, I think we were really, we sort of felt like we had our tail between our legs a little bit maybe when we shifted our pricing strategy. And it was a little bit of a, we weren't sort of thrilled to do it. But I think when we look at where we are now, sort of a year on from doing that, because we changed it very quickly. It was after about 6 months. And I guess that's what you can do being a small business is pivot, as they say, quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm really pleased that we did it. And it's once you try Hibernate, then and it's still not at a super cheap price point. I mean, just for those who don't know, it's like if you were to buy a pair of long pants and a long sleeve top, it's going to cost you around $160. Now, that's not for everyone, but we find that when people do spend that, then they want to come back because they see. It's like you've got to convert people to a new religion almost.
Yes.
They see the quality and they come back and they won't go back to their old ways. But that's I guess our biggest marketing challenge is how do we convert them? How do we get them across the line?
Yeah. And it would have been quite a hard one to kind of land on that initial price too, because as you identified before, the sleepwear category, particularly in the Australian market, it's not very populated. So you've got a lot of pajamas that are made and sold very, very cheaply. And I don't even know if there are some really, super expensive or super luxurious pajamas out there. I've certainly not come across them. So if you're kind of trying to be a premium sleepwear brand, but there's no other kind of benchmarks above the cheaper pajamas, the only other brand that I can even think of is the Peter Alexander brand, which was kind of probably the first sleepwear brand to go above the cheaper, flannelette pajama style. But then you've gone above them in terms of pricing and a much, much more simpler, sophisticated range, very, very different product offering. So it would have been hard to know, because even with your research, like I found that you can go out and you can ask people, well, what will you pay? But people will, when they're asked a hypothetical question like that, it's hard for them to actually answer honestly, because and you don't really actually ascertain what people will pay until it's actually time for them to get their credit card out.
That's right.
Or their cash out of their wallet and pay for it. So you've obviously had that 6 months where it's like, okay, here's the chance to put your money where your mouth is. Are they putting the money down? And, thankfully you did go in with that wiggle room so that you were able to adjust that. And regardless as to whether, and I can imagine it would have been disappointing to take that down, but how fantastic that you had the wiggle room to do that.
Oh, that's right. And it's interesting what you say. That's right. People are very, particularly with sleepwear, people are very reluctant to spend money on, and they may say one thing to you, but when it actually comes to, spending the money on a pair of pants, that they might not do it. The challenge for us is compared to, and back to your previous point, there are other sleepwear brands out there that are doing some really beautiful things, particularly in Australia, but they're still quite small, and they tend to focus on doing that more traditional style of pajama.
Right.
And it tends to be in a lot of silks.
Yes.
People associate that with luxury sleepwear.
Yeah.
So I think where our customer struggles, and this is the challenge for us, is trying to get enough of their time to tell our story about the brand and what is Pima cotton, why is it so special. I mean, I could bore you with that, the staple length fibers for a long time, because I find it so interesting where we get it made, why we, about the elastic, why we do what we do, really infusing that brand story, because it's a really compelling one.
Yes.
If they don't have the time and they just see, oh, it's cotton sleepwear, well, I can get that anywhere. I could get that cheaper. I could go to Big W and get cotton grey pants. What's so different about yours? So it's really, that's where I think marketing and branding has become so important, because on first glance, it might look kind of like other, you can get that elsewhere, but it's really infusing a strong sense of brand and quality in what we do, and that's the really tricky part.
Yes, yeah, and absolutely, and again, I can attest to the fact that yes, it's nothing like, I've had the cheap cotton pants from Target, and it's absolutely nothing like that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But there's only so much that, when you're selling a product online, you can't actually pick that fabric up and feel that for yourself.
Well, I mean, it's like, I'm sort of, I don't know why I thought of this, but it's like John Huston trying to sell us the GST. I mean, he just didn't do a good job of it. Yeah. Now we have it and everyone thinks it's, it's worth it. But that's when you're trying to educate your consumers about something they're not familiar with or comfortable with. It's really, it's really challenging when it's a new thing. I mean, when I speak to people about Pima cotton, 99% of people haven't heard of it before. So that's a real challenge for us and for a lot of brands how do you get your customers time to be able to explain that brand story. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so price, fantastic, done that one. Now, what about the place? So you mentioned before that your pricing strategy, adjusted slightly in terms of selling at wholesale and retail. So you had the choice, obviously, of selling the product via existing department stores or even other online retail stores. You have chosen to sell it solely via your own website for now.
Mm-hmm.
So pricing was one factor. What else went into the decision around how and where you were going to sell this product?
Well, yeah, it's the whole fashion industry is heading this way. I think maybe other industries are too, but particularly with fashion, direct to consumer seems to be a popular way for particularly new brands to launch their businesses. But equally, there are also some more established, really large brands that are actually trying to reverse their wholesale strategies and go back to direct to consumer. So not only did we see that that trend emerging, but we also knew that it was a way that we could ultimately offer, and there are so many reasons, but ultimately we can offer the customer a better quality product at a more reasonable price point.
Yeah. Okay.
And because, like I've said many times now, people's reluctance to spend money on sleepwear, that was a really big factor for us.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
The margins that you've got to factor in if you want a wholesale, by the time we get something made in Peru and then get it shipped over here, and then if we were to sell it to a retail store, and then we've got to put a margin in for them, and then they've got to put a margin on to sell it to you.
Yeah.
Paying for that retail space, the woman in the shop, the shelves, all that stuff. And so why not come straight to us? We'll give it to you at a better price and you get the same quality.
Yes.
Otherwise you have to compromise on quality, and we just weren't to get the price down. We just weren't prepared to do that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Ultimately it's about getting the customer a better quality item.
Yeah.
But also we wanted to be able to control the 4 Ps more. We wanted to be able to control the price, control the brand, control the quality. We wanted, we don't know what anyone else is saying about the brand out there when they're selling it in a store, how it's displayed.
Yes.
Are they discounting it? So it was something that, and also, I've heard a lot, there've been a lot, like I've said, have reversed their strategy because they got to a point where their sole focus became their retailers, and that's who they were dealing with, and following up accounts that hadn't been paid and dealing with them as opposed to actually dealing with the customers directly and getting that feedback. And
wow.
It just made sense to us. And it's also helped us, while you don't have the volumes that you would get or the brand exposure that you would get from having your brand in different stores, it's also meant that when you are starting out, it's actually not a bad thing to start out with small volumes so that you can fine tune the product, which we have.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to do. So it allows you that space to just really hone in on, trying to create an incredible product without having to worry about, oh, well, that store's ordered however many units and now they don't want it and now we've got all this stock. And, it gives us a little more wiggle room too with the seasons, which we're lucky our stuff is quite sort of seasonless in many ways. But, what if the manufacturer is running behind and yet then we miss the deadline for, it to get into the stores for Christmas? We eliminate all that headache. And so it really does become about, we can think about the customers more than we have to think about the retail outlets.
Yes. Yeah. That makes complete sense. So it does come down to that pricing element. Do you think you'll always stay direct to consumer, or do you think, have you kind of factored in at some stage you might explore the option of, wholesaling it elsewhere?
I think we will probably stay direct to consumer. I mean, never say never, but I don't think that will change.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it would be interesting to know the differential between the additional, I guess, outlay of creating the visibility for a new brand because you would have to do that all yourself without, and see my mind just goes straight to David Jones, I guess, and Myer, because I guess that's the kind of brand alignment I see your product sitting within. I mean, they're the bricks and mortar stores, but there's, you know, a whole bunch of online kind of retail department stores as well. Some that I'm sure I don't even know about. But in terms of that, as you said, you know, you do get some of that that extra visibility with your target audience who also shops at David Jones and is getting the, you know, the shoes and the jackets and the makeup and all the rest, and discovers your sleepwear that way. Do you feel like you've had to, or how much have you had to kind of compensate, do you think, in terms of getting the brand out there, because you've essentially built your marketing and your brand there from scratch? Do you think you've worked harder or invested harder to make up for that kind of lack of visibility that you might get otherwise?
Yeah, possibly. I think, though, we've been lucky in that, like I said earlier, customers are our biggest advocates, and that's been incredibly powerful for us because the word of mouth has been extraordinary. And look, it might take a little bit more time, but also there's an element of people enjoying discovering something new, and they get a real buzz that they've found this little brand that no one else has heard of, and you know, that won't last forever. But yeah, look, it's definitely made it more challenging, but from a business, like an operational perspective, it's been a lot easier for us to manage this way. And yeah, it's just ultimately it's about getting the customer something they want at a good price point. So we're going to stick with it. Okay,
wonderful. Now, for the fourth P, promotion, I'd like to kind of split this chat into two sections, because particularly because you were a startup, and because you're a marketer, you knew that there was promotion that had to be done from the brand point of view, as well as promoting the product and the sales of the product. So the way I generally break that down is, you know, the promotion that you invest in your brand is for the longer term. So you know, this is something that you build upon sustainably, you know, year after year, until you've got this, you know, amazing brand as an asset, and that's part of your business. But then there's all of the promotions that you need to do to actually generate sales, generate revenue, generate people coming into your community, email subscribers, all of that kind of shorter term activity as well. When you're a startup, you really have to be kind of focusing on both. So let's start off with brand. How did you and where did you start in terms of how you wanted to approach the promotion of the brand Hibernate?
Well, as I am a trained marketer, it was very important to me, and it was something that I invested in, or we invested in heavily at the start. I think a lot of new brands can think, oh, we'll just spend money on marketing, branding and that sort of thing later on, whereas we really invested in that upfront. We used an agency, Smack Bang, in Sydney, to really set up some really sophisticated brand guidelines for us at the very beginning, which has, you know, I mean, we still use them every day. So that's been really important, because consistency and quality in brand is everything for me. You know, I will not change a color, I will not change a font, I will not change a size in something, you know, if it's to be a certain way. So yeah, that was really important. And I think that, you know, that sort of sings through everything we do, and puts the Hibernate brand, you know, at a certain level from the very get-go. I think it's hard to kind of when you're a brand, particularly around fashion, when it's something that you want people to covet and aspire to, it's really got to go from the get-go.
Yeah,
it's really got to be at a certain level from the get-go. So we had those sort of branding fundamentals, I guess, from the very beginning. And, you know, in terms of promoting the brand, you know, really everything from our imagery, our website, our packaging, our social media content, it all had to be of a really like a certain quality. And that's expensive, you know, to make it look good is expensive.
Yeah.
But we had to invest in that from the beginning, and we've gotten smarter at how to do that as time has gone on. But imagery in particular is everything for us, particularly because we've got a very simple product. So how do you make that product look, premium, and how do you make it look like something that people can want to spend money on?
Yeah.
So we've also been very targeted with the publications that we have approached to include Hibernate, and we've been really successful too, actually, at that. Interestingly, even though you're talking about promoting the brand, because that's been a really beneficial way for us to promote the brand, and when people see it in these types of publications, that it gives you a certain, I guess, credibility. But interestingly, in terms, we've got a really sophisticated media kit that we send out to them all to talk about the brand. It tells a lot of the stories behind the brand, but ultimately it's our product that does the winning for us, because 99% of the time when we have had media mentions, it's come from, I've sent them product. And once they've tried it, they go, oh yeah, your media kit's pretty. But once they've tried the product, that's when we really convert them. So that's not something that I don't think I thought that would happen that way from the beginning. I thought maybe the media kit might be enough, and the storytelling that we did there and the beautiful imagery. But really, if you've got a powerful product, it really cuts through all of that noise, because these journalists are receiving, dozens, hundreds of these types of emails every day. So if you have a product or a service that really kind of can make them sit up and pay attention, that really helps. So it's tricky when it's a male journalist, but we have been very lucky with the coverage that we've had for the brand there. We've also collaborated with brands that we feel sit on the same kind of level, that are well aligned with Hibernate. So, we've done something with a brand that did a sleep retreat. So everyone that went to the sleep retreat got some Hibernate sleepwear, and that was promoted throughout their community as well. We've done giveaways with brands that we feel align with us well. We've also, everyone talks about influencers, and obviously it's an important part of our marketing strategy, especially with fashion. But we sometimes will pick an influencer purely from a branding perspective, not just for selling product. So we really do see them in two different sort of categories. We think this might help push it with, that sort of a demographic. But this influencer will help because it aligns with the brand. When people see that person wearing Hibernate, it kind of makes them go, oh, okay, that's where they sit with that. And it's all...
People like them do things like us.
That's right. That's right. So so there's many parts to it, but look, at the end of the day, it's our product which is our most effective.
And so you mentioned, and I know, with previous discussions with you, that the photography of the product, which we would both agree lends so much in the creation of where that brand perception will end up, because that photography is your major kind of visual touch point. And I know the majority of the stuff that I've personally seen has been on Instagram, and we know that Instagram is a place for beautiful things and things that attract our attention from a visual perspective. And you mentioned that you've got better at doing it, so because it is that photography side of things can be incredibly expensive by the time you include beautiful models, which you have. It's not you're not grabbing your next door neighbor or your best girlfriend to appear in these shots. You're paying models and photographers, and you've got full bedrooms and scenarios set up. This stuff's expensive. What have you learned along the way in terms of becoming more cost efficient and effective with getting that kind of investment to a more efficient stage?
And look, especially so because we didn't come from this background, so we didn't know any of the little tips, and in some ways, I feel like even though we cringe sometimes when we look back at that first much money we spent on it, we almost had to go through that to learn what we needed to know and where we could cut costs. So our first photo shoot, we hired a location, we had a stylist, we had lighting people, we had 2 hair and makeup. It was all just really over the top. And that was because we went to a particular photographer, and that's the way, and stylist, and that's the way they operated. You know, it was that on that kind of level. So in subsequent shoots, we've been lucky enough to find a photographer that fits our style of photography that is, well, cheaper for one. Now Abby and I do the styling because we've learned a lot. We know what to look out for. We're still not perfect at it, but we're getting better and better every shoot. I mean, I was just like, you know, a deer in headlights in my first photo shoot because there's so much going on. And now I know what to look for. Oh, her hair's out of place. Oh, the product doesn't look great there. Oh, the lighting. Oh, actually that shot came through and her eyes were closed. And you get much faster at it because every minute is another dollar, you know, that you're thinking you're going through, and there's a lot of pressure to make it all happen on that same day. We've also not paid for a location again. We've made sure we've used friends' houses that, you know, we're lucky enough to have some friends who have got nice places to shoot in. But that is running out pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, finding a good photographer, and they're a great studio that we work with, and we do a lot of e-com shots and you know, our flat lay imagery and that sort of stuff with them too. And we make it all work. So we do it all in one day. We do a half-day campaign shoot, half-day e-com back in the studio, and we're just getting much more efficient.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then in terms of the publications that you were talking about, can you tell us some of the publications that that you've gone out to and why you chose those publications?
Yeah, sure. We came up with a bit of a list, as a bit of a wish list as to who we would like to approach. And it's tricky because, you know, a lot of these journalists move around a lot. So, you know, it's got to be like finding out the right person to contact and, you know, really emailing them with a relevant, compelling pitch is, you know, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
We picked a bit of a, you know, and then you've got to break it down into short lead and long lead and digital and hard copy. And we were one of the biggest, sorry, you asked me exactly which publications?
Which type of publications did you, and how did you know, like, why did you choose those?
Yeah, well, and look, we're learning a lot there too. I mean, interestingly, as we, you know, are deep into this new digital age, not so new now, but this digital age, surprisingly, we've actually had our hard copy, so our print mentions have been super successful for us. So we were in Sunday Life magazine, the lift out of the Sun Herald. We were in that in June last year, and that was really huge for us. It was massive, and I was quite surprised. We've also learned that it works better when they can use it, if they're willing to use a campaign image. So it's one of our images, as opposed to just seeing the product in what they refer to as like being a deep etched image. So just an outline of the actual clothes with it not being on a model.
So when you say campaign, you mean like a shot in situ, like someone in the bedroom or whatever. So a beautiful shot, as opposed to just
that's right. As opposed to like a typical website e-commerce shot. Yeah, that's
right. Okay.
So that tends to work better. Although recently we were included in Broadsheet in their newsletter, and that's an e-newsletter, and that was incredibly powerful, even though they did use some campaign shots, but it wasn't the lead. I don't think it was the lead shot, but that was compelling because we had given product to the editor and she loved it, and she wrote a full 6-paragraph article on the pair of pants because she'd tried the product. And that was powerful because people can just click on a link and they're straight to that page. You know, they don't have to read it in a newspaper and then go online and misspell hibernate and you know and then eventually find us. So that was really powerful too. But you know, then we've had some misses as well. You know, some surprising misses, places where we thought it would you know, generate more interest. But it hasn't done.
Right. Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard of Broadsheet is an online digital newsletter communication that goes out to a bunch of people, mostly in metropolitan areas, and it's all about like lifestyle stuff that's cool right now, cafes, bars and products, etc. How many people would be on that email list?
Sarah?
Oh,
Like
gosh.
hundreds of thousands, millions? What do we think?
Oh, look, I would have thought over 100,000 maybe for each state. You know, it's obvious, as you said, it's done for each of the big capital cities.
Right.
But
So
look,
there's the Sydney broadsheet and the Melbourne broadsheet.
that's right. Yeah,
Right,
that's right.
yeah.
Oh, look, it's I mean, it's very powerful in that it talks about what's new and what's upcoming, and it's very highly regarded. And interestingly, had a really broad readership base. I was quite surprised. You know, we were getting young people and old people from different areas, not just even in Sydney. So it was, and look, I think it got syndicated to all of their publications,
Right.
to all of their cities. So,
happy
but
days.
yeah, look, it was great. I think, you know, it's just easy, isn't it? You just click on a link and you're there.
Yeah.
And also more than that, she told a story. It was a really good story. I mean, I read the article and thought, I want to get myself some of those pants.
Well, she's a journalist, right? So
That's
knows how
right.
to write that. Wow, the power of simply sending someone your product, which would have cost you the cost of postage and the cost of that product, and that I would have imagined led to, you know, several sales for your business, which would be a lot more than the cost of that product. So
that's right.
Amazing. So obviously getting your product out to the media has been a key strategy for you, or a key tactic, I should say, in terms of your marketing. But what else have you done?
In terms of the brand?
Of promotion. Well, even just now talking about getting, you know, sales and building communities and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What else have you done?
Yeah. Oh, look, I definitely think, you know, if I'm going to sort of admit a weakness, I think that we probably could be doing a better job around community. But as you know, Jane, community takes time and it takes in a real investment. And, you know, I'm sort of disclosing this because, you know, when you run a small business, it's really hard to take that time to do that because, you know, and we're definitely getting there. But the community is something that when you're busy packing orders and dealing with, you know, uploading images to a website and dealing with lost packages and trying to keep operating, you know, taking that time to build a community is a real luxury, I think. I mean, I look around at other brands and I think, gosh, how do they have the time to do what they're doing and respond to all these customers and really create that sense of community online? But we're definitely getting there.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things we did to capitalize on the fact that when we recognized that our customers were our most powerful kind of marketing tool, we added some functionality to the website to I guess encourage them and compensate them for doing that. So we have a referral program on our site so that when a customer, it doesn't even have to be a current customer, it could be a new customer, sends a link to their friend, they both get a discount off their next pair of pajamas. And that has worked really well for us.
Has it?
Yeah, because I think it can tip some people into, oh, actually, well, I will tell that person about it because I'm going to get $20 off my next pair of pajamas, and I'm doing them a favor because they're going to get $20 off too.
Yeah,
and, you know, that's the power of Shopify these days. You know, it's such a sophisticated platform that, you know, you only need to add an app to your store and you have this amazing functionality.
Yeah. And for those people who don't know, Shopify is a website platform that has been deliberately built for retailers, essentially. And they plug into just about everything. It's a beautiful platform to use. So referral program. And you talked about building your communities before. Now, I'm assuming you're talking about they're building up the Instagram followers. Are you on Facebook?
Yes, we are. But we've really we made the decision very early on to focus on Instagram.
On the Instagram. So building up that that Instagram community. And look, I think now is probably one of the most difficult times to be building communities on social media. 10 years ago, even 7 years ago, 5 years ago, it was much easier to build the numbers behind those communities. But as we know, it's also about building the engagement and the leverage from the people within those communities. So then, building email databases off the back of those as well. But again, as this becomes a very, very congested space, that kind of used to be easy 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. But now that people subscribe to so many email lists and like and follow so many different pages, people are a lot more discerning around what they will subscribe to and sign up to as opposed to a while ago. So I can understand why and why it does take that little bit more of a time to build community. But I also think too there's a false perception around what large communities mean for a brand. There are some brands out there that do seem to have huge numbers of followers. But it's what you actually do with those followers that actually matters. Vanity metrics is something we're constantly fighting against. And you're actually so much better to have a small, highly engaged community of people that, as you say, are so loyal to your brand and so willing and enthusiastic to kind of share that with their communities. That's the power of community. Going in and aspiring to have 100,000 people like your Instagram page for the sake of having 100,000 Instagram followers is not going to actually mean much to you or to your bottom line of your business.
And look, we're lucky because it's marketing isn't about anymore. It's not about the stuff that you make. It's about the stories that you tell.
That's right.
And we have got we're lucky because we've got so many good stories to tell.
Yeah.
And like I said to you earlier, I could bore you to tears about Pima cotton and its amazing qualities and why we get our stuff made in Peru and how it's going to make you feel at the end of a day and how you're going to get addicted to sleepwear. So we're lucky because we've got all this great content. So we're never short of a story to tell.
Yeah.
And and our ethical manufacturing, our customers love hearing about that. And so it's, and often we'll get it's interesting what you say about the metrics, because sometimes we'll be surprised with the results of a post and yet we think it's a really good story or we think it's a really compelling piece of information. But often the customers will come straight to us. They won't necessarily like the post or make a comment on the post, but they'll DM us and go, oh, that's great, you're doing that or something. So it's interesting to see how they interact with it. But, we used to get down about, if we saw a post that didn't maybe do so well, but I think now we look at it more holistically. So, our Instagram feed is, telling this amazing brand story. For anyone that looks at it, in an instant, they can see straight away, oh, gee, they've got those people wearing their stuff. Oh, wow. That I can see that they care about who makes their clothes. Oh my gosh, look at that amazing cotton. Oh, wow. Look at, so it just tells us, you've got to look at it as in, look, that line in that chapter in the book mightn't have been your favorite, but overall, when you book, that's kind of how we want to look at our Instagram page, that it, it's telling a complete story, and it will the bits that are important to that particular customer will resonate with them. If they really care about ethical manufacturing and social responsibility, then we tick their box. If they really care that particular influencer wore our stuff, well, then that will tick their box. So we try and
cater
for all those customers.
Yeah. So on the topic of measurements and metrics, so apart from revenue, obviously, what are some of the key marketing metrics or measurements that you're collecting on a monthly or quarterly basis for your business? What are you taking notice of?
Well, we love data. Both Abby and I both love data. And, like any small business owner, including yourself, Jane, it's often the challenge is finding the time to actually sit with it and do it. But one of the disciplines that our accountant actually got us onto very early on, which we have maintained, is on a weekly basis we have a document that we refer to as our key stats. And so every week, and we take it in turns so that both of us are across the numbers, sort of more real time basis. We don't obviously make anyone else do it for us. We have this document where we track sales for that week. So
Yep.
it's on a weekly basis. So we do sales, website visitors,
Yes.
conversion rate,
Great.
Instagram followers, and email subscribers.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. I've got a very similar one that I use with my clients, but it's a monthly one.
Yeah,
but love it that you're doing it on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because all of those measurements are intertwined.
That's right. That's right. And we've got it color coded so that, when and it's, obviously, and that measurement sits below what our target is for that. So we have targets every week for those key stats. And then we obviously, then we do it on a monthly basis, add it up on a monthly basis as well. But what we do is if we fall below our target, that cell in Excel goes red. And so we don't get too concerned because some things happen. Some weeks obviously you're doing different promotions or something's happened that you're doing better or worse. But once a cell in a particular line item goes red for a few weeks in a row, so let's say our email subscribers, all of a sudden we're not meeting our targets for 3 or 4 weeks, then we turn our attention to it. And I find the color coding system helps, because in these documents there are so many numbers. It's hard to kind of see through it all and see what you've really got to focus on. So that we'll go, okay, this is where we need to put some attention, like what can we do to help our email subscribers.
I love it, Sarah. This is absolute music to my ears. So not only are you collecting the data, you're actually doing something with it. You're using it to make good decisions around what you do next. That's awesome. I love it. So you're doing email subscriptions. So how many people are actually, like, how many people you're growing the email database by? How many people are joining your Instagram community? How many website hits you're getting, and then how many sales you're making from that website?
That's right. And the last one was the conversion rate.
And the conversion rate and the conversion rate would be measuring sales versus the website clicks or people visiting your website.
That's right. Yeah. So for the, and the industry standard in, or particularly in apparel, is about 2%. So you want 2% of you want 2% of your visitors coming to your website to be making a purchase.
Right.
So
excellent.
That's, we sit above 2%, which awesome. I think is a result. We've got a very well, obviously I think so, but it's a beautiful looking website, but it's also very user friendly. It's very easy to navigate. And there are so many things you can do to help your conversion, but that's been really interesting, tracking conversion. And we know that if our conversion goes down, why is that so? Well, it's often because we actually don't have, we've run out of stock more often than not. But it's something that we're quite proud of, that we have, we sit above the benchmark for the industry.
That's awesome.
But it's definitely look, as you say, it's not any one key thing. It's obviously very easy to focus on sales, but to look at all those things as a whole, and you really do start to see the patterns. The other thing we did was we also put a note in each particular week if something extraordinary happened. So, for example, the Broadsheet article, we would make a note of that, because next year when we look back at our figures for that month in March, April, whatever it was, compared to it, we'll think, wow, what happened there? So it's useful to kind of put in, did you send out an EDM that week? Were you in the media? Whatever it is, or if particularly if things are slow, why were they slow that week? Because it's it's very easy to have a short-term memory with that.
Oh, absolutely. And so much happens in 6 weeks, let alone 6 months, let alone a year.
That's right.
That is so good. Wow. Tip of the day. Tip of the year, really. I'm with you guys. I love my data. Okay. So what about, give me your biggest lesson, because I could sit here talking to you all day. I love just talking to you about how you've started this journey, because you've started it so beautifully and so considerately. There's been so much research and planning and meticulous details that have gone into this. tell me, what's your biggest lesson, or what are a few of your biggest lessons that you've learned over the last couple of years of starting Hibernate and getting that product to market?
Well, I think, as you say, like, be considered and think about it and research it. And I think that sometimes when you're looking to start a business, it can be really intimidating. And you see all these success stories about you, around you, and you think about, oh, well, maybe I wouldn't be able to do that because I don't know that industry well enough. And also you get this sort of paralysis of, I don't know where to start. Where do I start? I'd never worked in this industry before, neither of us had. So it's like, well, how do we even find a manufacturer? How do we even find the cot? How do we know where to get swing tags from? How do we even know how to tell them what to do? It can be so overwhelming. And so what I would say to anyone who's thinking of doing it is just do one thing. Just set yourself a task and do one thing. And it might just be a coffee with someone who has worked in the industry, or it might be watching that seminar on YouTube, or reading that article, or following that brand on Instagram, or whatever it is. It's something, and that will lead you to something else, and that will lead you to something else. And then before you know it, you're sitting doing a podcast talking about your business. So it just, it snowballs. So it can be very, it can be very intimidating, I think, to know where to start. I also think for me, I didn't really think too much about having a partner in the early days. I just always assumed I would do it on my own. I thought, no, I'm going to do it by myself, and it's going to be my way. And then a mutual friend introduced us to me and Abby to each other, and because Abby was thinking of doing a very similar thing, and we were at very similar stages in our life, and we connected, and it's been an incredible partnership, and we really enjoyed working with each other. And in hindsight, I think, oh my gosh, how could I ever have done this on my own? And look, a partnership is not for everyone. I completely understand that. And, often you hear of stories where it doesn't work out. But I think I would say my biggest sort of learning from having made that decision is to really think about, well, what do you want? Yes, you think about your product or your service that you want to create, but what do you want your life to look like? How is that going to fit into your life? And I was crazy to think that I could have made this brand done it on my own. There's no way. And I don't mean just from the perspective of having the hours in the day to pack orders and put stuff on the website. It's been so much more fulfilling for both of us to have had a partner to go through this together. But more than anything, Hibernate is better for it, because you are forced to discuss things, and we come to the table with a decision. Let's say we're talking about a really big decision we need to make, and we might be coming at it from different angles, which often we don't. We really are very well aligned on our thinking, but we're kind of forced to say our side of the story, I guess. And then we often find that we'll end up at a completely different conclusion, and we'll choose a different solution than what we would have done if it was just us making the decision ourselves. So it does force you to articulate your thinking. And I think sometimes when you are a small business owner, and if you're just doing it on your own, it can be tricky, and sometimes it's nice to have someone to bounce things off. I mean, but like I say, it's not for everyone, but for us particularly, we've both got young families, so it really works for our lifestyle. And I really enjoy it. I mean, when we have a win, when I found out we were going to be in Broadsheet, I mean, Abby's the first person I want to tell. So that's really exciting. Sharing that with someone, and equally, you hear this time and time again. I guess it's like, it's like a husband-wife relationship. When someone's up, someone's down, like you can help each other through, if I'm thinking, oh gosh, this isn't going to work out, and she'll prep me up. So I have really enjoyed that side of it. So I think that it's all very well to have a great business idea, but really think about, okay, well, how is that going to fit in with my life, and what's the best structure
to be able to do that.
fantastic.
Yeah. And that's so fabulous, and it's so awesome to hear that has worked out and is such a healthy and prosperous relationship by the sounds of things. That's great, because as you said, there's plenty of partnerships that perhaps are entered into a little bit too hastily, or, you know, entered into in good faith, but, you know, when you work so closely. And, you know, as you said, as any small business owner would know, the passion and the love and the blood, sweat and tears, and the fact that it kind of integrates with your personal life way more than you would have ever anticipated. You know, the person that goes on that journey with you kind of really needs to be someone that understands and feels the same way, you know, is as driven, is as passionate, but also understands, you know, and as you said, you and Abby are both in the same life stage. So you've got young kids, she's got young kids. If it's all going pear-shaped, you know, at one of your houses, you get it. It's not like you're dealing with someone who's completely not empathetic.
And look, a lot of the time, and a lot of the time, I think when people talk about partnerships, you know, they talk about looking for someone who's got a complementary skill set to you, which is, I think, incredibly valuable. Don't get me wrong, but I'd almost argue that it's more important to have someone that you're going to work with well.
100%. 100%.
So there's no point in going, oh, gee, I'm not great with numbers. I'll go find someone who's really good at numbers. Yeah. Because that might not work out personality-wise.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
Abby and I work because I think we've both got very reasonable temperaments, and we're both good listeners, and we don't get too dogmatic about anything. We recognise when someone is really passionate about something and when to back down. We also were not friends before we started this, so there's no tension around she might be offended if I say yes, or, you know, and don't get me wrong, we've obviously become friends throughout this process. But I really think it's you know, a bit like a marriage in some ways. It's got a bit of personality fit, which is really important too. So I wouldn't we definitely have some complementary skill sets. I mean, my background is in marketing, and she was a lawyer, so she's got some terrific skill sets that I don't have. But that wouldn't be.
But that wasn't what it was about.
No, I look at more at personality, because, you know, and often you see, I think partnerships get a bad rap because so often they go pear-shaped. And I think that it's personality is really important. Don't underestimate it.
Couldn't agree more. Now, Sarah, now we have spoken so passionately about Hibernate and the sleepwear, and I have attested to its beautiful quality. Where can people find you? Where can they see all of this happening?
On hibernate.com. So I don't think we mentioned this at the start, but Hibernate's actually spelled with a Y. So hibernate.com, and also Hibernate. Just Hibernate on Instagram.
Fantastic. Excellent. So if you have been compelled to go and get, particularly if you're a female, if you have been compelled by Sarah's storytelling here to go out and get some new sleepwear, you can go and visit either of those. Love to have your feedback as to what you think of the brand and think of the product. So if you do buy some, I'm sure Sarah would love to hear from you. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Honestly, I could sit here and talk to you all afternoon. The fact I've still got so many questions going on in my head, but we've been speaking for a very long time now. Maybe we need to have you back for Mark 2 of this interview. But thank you very much for joining me and sharing so generously all your insight of your business journey, particularly around the 4 Ps of marketing, which you have done so exceptionally well.
Oh, thank you, Jane. It's been a pleasure.
So there you have it. My biggest takeaway, Sarah and Abby got their product so right. And because of this, the promotion was made so much easier. Once somebody tries their product, they buy it some more, they tell their friends, and if they are a journalist, they write about it. I think so many people underestimate the importance of getting your product, your place and your price right before you start with the promotion. Research, plan, get it right, and then execute your marketing. So if you are enjoying all of the small business marketing insight that is being shared out on the How to Do Marketing show, please be sure to hit subscribe and also to leave a rating and review. Thank you so much to those people who've already left a rating and review. I'm loving reading them. Thank you. Also, if you're keen to join the conversation about marketing with other like-minded small business owners, come and join us in the How to Do Marketing Facebook group. This is a safe space to connect with other like-minded business owners, ask questions, run ideas past people, discuss topics that arise in the How to Do Marketing show. So we'd love to see you there. Just search for the How to Do Marketing group on Facebook. Okay,